Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the FloBikes Cyclocross Ranking Show. I am FloBikes Senior Editor Ian Dille, here with Molly Hurford. Molly, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
We are going to break down the women's US and Canada rankings. Canadian Jen Jackson just getting on the top 25 rankings at 22nd. This rider placed 5th at the Pan Am Championships. Molly, what do we know about Jen and her recent success in cyclocross?
Yeah, so Jen is a Canadian racer from Ontario. She's an awesome mountain biker, U23 national champion. She, was the overall Canada Cup leader in the mountain bike this summer. So she's, a pretty talented cross-country mountain biker. She's also a cross-country skier, so the on and off bike portions make sense. So as soon as she decided to try cyclocross, she did really well. She was in the top 10 at Rochester earlier this season, didn't race again until Pan Am's. Showed up at Pan Am's, took 5th in a pretty deep field, I'm going to say. And then just this past weekend was 2nd at Canadian Nationals behind Magali.
Will it be exciting to see Jen and what she does domestically the rest of the season? Hopefully she comes down and races in Tulsa and some of the other domestic events. We're seeing a lot of parity in the women's domestic field, similar to what we see internationally. 7th through 16th are constantly shifting up. I was really surprised to see Courtney McFadden down in 15th place after her impressive 4th place finish at Pan Am's.
Yeah, I mean, Courtney is doing awesome now that she's back. She was out for a few weeks with, her hip injury was acting up again, so she needed to take a few weeks off the bike. And what we're kind of seeing with the men's and the women's is that consistency matters. If you miss even a week, you're probably going to be out of the top 25 because everyone in the top 25 at this point has been on the podium at a UCI race. So one podium alone is not going to keep you in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you weren't top 10 at Pan Am's, you might have won the really rad cyclocross festival. So, or like, Sammy Runnels, she was 6th place at Pan Am's over in Japan now, won a UCI race in Japan. So yeah, really tightly packed women's field. And moving into 4th place, under 23 rider Clara Hansinger. What do we have to say about Clara's season so far, and moving ahead of reigning U.S. national champion Katie Compton? Molly.
I know. Hear me out. I mean, first of all, if I was the U23 racer in Europe, I would be very, very nervous about U23 Worlds right now, because I think between Clara and Katie Klaus, they're going to have some serious firepower to contend with. So Clara's been having an amazing season. She's won a couple of UCI races. She's podiumed in a bunch. She destroyed her race in U23 Pan Am's. She's going over to race to Borenkock's side, so it'll be really interesting to see where she stacks up in both the women's field and in the U23 field when it gets pulled out. I think she's going to have a really good time over in Europe.
Yeah, it is going to be exciting to see what she can do in Europe. And then the big news of this week's rankings, Ellen Noble loses her top spot to Magali Rochette. These two are developing quite the rivalry. Magali smashed the Canadian National Championships, won by over a minute and a half, and then also beat Ellen at Pan Am's after Ellen made a mistake and crashed on the last lap. What does this rivalry developing, this cross-border rivalry mean for domestic racing?
It means pretty exciting racing. It also means I feel like I'm going to get a lot of hate mail this week between moving Katie Compton down a little bit and switching this one up. But I mean, Magali had an amazing couple of weekends. She had a rough go the first day of the Pan Am races. She was 3rd after an early crash, kind of knocked her out of that top group. She fought her way back, and then she kind of went into the next day into the Pan Am's with a bit of anger, I'll say, and had that going for her, and it worked. And then, she followed it up with the Canadian Nationals. She was 6th at the World Cup in Bern, so she could be heading over to Europe and really have a chance of doing quite well in the World Cup and just kind of working on just extending that streak she has going on. But it's kind of great to see a rivalry like this kind of redeveloping in the women's field. So we've had Katarina versus Katie Compton. When Georgia Gould was in the mix, it was those three. So it's really awesome to see a 22-year-old and a 25-year-old kind of taking charge and really, going back and forth the way they have been this season.
Yeah, we can't forget about Katie Keough sitting third in our rankings as well. It's going to be exciting to see what these ladies do against international competition when they head over to Europe and race some of the World Cups. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will be back in 2 weeks with our domestic women's rankings and back next week with our international rankings. Agree or disagree if you're watching on YouTube. The comments section is just below, and thanks for being with us, Molly.
Thanks for having me.